Yo. Oh. What's up? It's me. I'm here in Australia at the end of my tour, my Asian uh, Eastern tour, India, Cambodia, Hong Kong, and 6 months in Thailand. And those islands feel like a lot of another country, even though they're just still Thailand. Um, Here at the end of my journey to kind of explain to you guys some key component differences between Eastern and Western thought and philosophy, namely that of presence versus long-term planning and other things like that, ephemerality versus kind of long-term planning again, kind of infinity, sort of everlasting things, and the keystone difference, I would say, is this emphasis on essence versus form. Now, going back to first point, presence versus kind of long term. The Thais, I'm going to go with Thais for the most part because I've gotten a lot from them and I spent the most time in that country. But the Thai people, anyway, very in the now. You can see it in the way that they drive. You can, there's horrible traffic, and they navigate that without any real issues, which is pretty impressive. They emotionally, they don't seem to go through nearly as many emotional hurdles as, say, like an American driver would. That's one. And then also looking at just like the way that a lot of their society works, there's a lot of street vendors and street stalls. Now these people aren't always there, and in many cases it serves you best if you, in the present moment, if you are present to your body and you want a mango, you see someone with a mango, you buy the mango. You can't necessarily plan like a Westerner would, like me. I plan like, oh well, I'll go there on Tuesday, I'm there on Wednesday. You can't really do that because they just decide to go there or not. This is also apparent in the fact that sometimes you'll have a street vendor or a restaurant owner that just doesn't have items on the menu today because they didn't feel like going today. They didn't feel like, in the present moment, being congruent to who they feel like in the present, didn't go to the market to get the vegetables or the meat or whatever. So that item isn't available. That's happened to me numerous times. Of course, Buddhism, meditation is a part of being a practicing Buddhist, and so even if the kids, say, of the families don't want to meditate in the same way that Westerners are brought to, church or synagogue, or brought places they don't want to be in Western religions, in the same way, kids are brought up to meditate anyway. Or at least have an idea of what it is in the back of their heads, whereas Westerners have no idea really what meditation is, and kind of already are removed from this idea of being present. There's pros and cons to obviously both sides. The vendor thing kind of feeds into the ephemerality versus the long-term planning. It's based on things are very ephemeral in Thailand. Things are there and then they are not. Like vendors, for example, sometimes material, sometimes, looking at styles in clothing, just when you're at a store or when you're at a mall, I've never seen a faster turnover of like styles than in Asia. Just you go there, you see a red sweatshirt one day, and like literally the next day or maybe 2 days, an entire rack of new clothing. I'm just completely amazed at how quickly they overturn styles and stuff, at least in each individual store. Again, on ephemerality materials as well, they're not built to last forever. Whereas in the West, when we build something, it's supposed to last a while. These things don't necessarily, like a lot of the materials don't last nearly as long. Some of the bricks that I saw were just dismal in terms of structural integrity, and like used in Cambodia and other construction sites around Thailand. It's just like those bricks don't look nearly as solid as the ones that I know and I've grown up with. Um, Maybe they are, but I've seen so many broken pieces of building and so many shattered walls. And I see those bricks inside. I just wonder how solid are those walls really. Um, of course, that may have something to do with class disparity as well. You got the poor kids running around and breaking stuff. That could also be a thing. But as someone who trains parkour and free running, just landing on things, they move more. There's less solid things to jump on in Asia and Thailand, India, etc. It's excruciatingly important to check your surfaces, because if you don't, you could very much regret it. Luckily, I had a good enough instinct where nothing was really an issue for me. And yeah. So again, ephemerality versus long-lasting. Working with Thais, I worked with them. I was studying at Thammasat University in Bangkok on the Chao Phraya, I hope that's right, river, and those guys, one, I was very impressed with the fact that they all wanted to work on group projects. Two, a little bit irked at the fact that a group project had up to 9 people in it or more. That's too many for a group project to everyone to have. It's just counterproductive at that point. Yeah, but in terms of planning, I was willing to do like the whole thing and set out an entire plan in the first week, but they all kind of wanted to sit with it and wait. They didn't want to set those plans early. They're a little plan resistant. Not all Thais, obviously, but just the ones that I worked with. It seems as though planning is not really something that they feel the need to do, or they feel like they have to do. Whereas a Westerner, for me, planning is essential. Granted, of course, I am college educated. I've been to college for 4.5 years now. Maybe you could argue 5. And I've had to plan to get this success, to get to where I am today, in order to travel. That's another reason. I imagine, too, not only because of this disparity in terms of income and stuff, not a lot of Thais are super well off, not, well off enough to get, flight tickets and things like that. I'm not either, but thank you to the state of California and working really hard, thanks to that, for this capacity. But it's not a priority for them. Traveling isn't a priority for them, and I would argue Thais and just most other of those kinds of countries, I imagine the ones that are, it's not a priority because then they'd have to plan, and planning is its own, work. And if you're already working hard every day, you don't want to plan more than you have to. You don't want to work more than you have to. So that kind of makes sense. And this kind of finally feeds into the last one, which is kind of essence versus form. If you look at just a lot of the things in Thailand, they're there, but not in the way they are in the West. If you look at a storefront in the West, you get a huge decorative sign. You get a big storefront. It has the sign and maybe some price on the outside. A lot less in Thailand. Obviously, in the richer places that are geared toward Westerners, you have more Westernized stores. But if you get into Thailand and you get into those little sois, those little side streets, you see stores are kind of a mixture of houses and working places. They're not separate as we do so much in the West. Obviously, home offices are a thing in the West, but it's not nearly as widespread over there. I mean, it seems as though almost every other house is some kind of business, does laundry for you, or some kind of a mart. So that's kind of interesting. So the essence of the store is still there. So the Thais then have the essence of whatever it is, in the same way that we look at the materials. The essence of, say, a wall is maybe to them more visual. The essence is to block a view. Well, that's all it's going to do. Whereas in America, if we're going to build a wall, it's going to be solid. We don't want anyone breaking it. We don't want anyone climbing it. So we're going to cover all of those bases. Whereas in Thailand, if we just want to block something, we'll put up sheet metal. Not very strong, very easy to break, very easy to take apart. But the essence of the function of the wall is still there. Whereas we, as Westerners, tend to be more on form. This matters. We design the house like this. We design the wall like this for longevity. It's just a completely different mindset in terms of planning, like urban planning and infrastructure. And one could argue that it's probably why the traffic's so bad in Bangkok. Granted, there's also lots and lots of people. Um, but yeah, that's mostly it. That was, presence and versus long-term planning. You've got ephemerality versus everlasting things like materials and things like that, and you've got essence over form. Again, a Westerner is very much into worrying about what they're wearing and things like that. Some ties do as well. The richer ties care about that as well. Of course, at university and high school, they have to wear uniforms. So the essence, what is the essence of clothing? It's a shirt and pants. And for women, they decided that the essence is a shirt and a skirt. So they wear those, but they don't. The presentation then becomes less so important. Same with a lot of the soups. They just kind of throw the stuff in there. It's not super. Whereas if you, and obviously this changes as you go into high-end restaurants, but again, presentation is not as important to them as it is to the West, and you see evidence of that everywhere in Thailand. So that's pretty much it. Again, here on a gorgeous day in Port Macquarie, Australia, New South Wales, at the end of my journey, just kind of ranting about some of the keystone differences and lessons that I've learned over the course of my last 6 months, which feels like a whole other lifetime. Even though I'm taking breaks here, not doing anything during the days, I still feel as though time is going just so fast. Even though I don't do anything in a day, it's just kind of like, oh, the sun's already down. Granted, it is the shortest day of the year, at least yesterday it was. But yeah, it's a beautiful day, and saw koalas yesterday. Gonna see some more kangaroos today, and yeah, we'll see what Australia has to offer.